Welcome to Changing the Game, where bold leaders, rule breakers, and trailblazers drop the playbook and share how they lead, win, and shake things up. All right, welcome back to the show, everyone. My name is Jordan Duran. Today, I'm joined by Kate Woelffer. Kate is the Senior Vice President of Sales at Motive, where she's helping redefine how enterprise teams build strategy, trust, and scale. Kate has built her career on high performance. She leads with vision, lifts others as they climb, and bring a thoughtful approach to building customer relationships and developing talent. At Motive, she's not only leading sales effort for some of the company's most strategic accounts, she's also a driving force behind mentorship and advocating for women in sales. Beyond her impressive career, Kate was an elite softball player competing at the University of Minnesota. Go Gophers! Kate, welcome to the show.
Gophers.
It's so great to have you here.
Thank you. I need to bring you around as my personal hype person. That was great.
Yeah, I got you on that. I love to hype the guests up, and you have such an awesome background. It's such an easy thing to do. Kate and I were chatting before the show started. We found out we had a lot in common in terms of like we planted some roots in the Twin Cities. So that was really fun to bond over before the episode.
I know. It's such a small world.
It is. It's such a small world. We took a trip down memory lane, so I'm so excited to get into Kate's background, share all of her wisdom with the audience today. So, Kate, I'd love if you could kind of kick us off and set the stage for us. You're a former D1 athlete. You're the SVP of sales, and you've been recognized as one of the top 50 women leaders in Minnesota, which is so cool. Where did this leadership and competitive drive come from?
Well, okay, so I have to start by saying I have 3 sisters. All 4 of us were D1 athletes, and so I grew up in a house where everything was friendly competition. So it was a little bit unavoidable. When I think back, when I was a little kid, I was actually super, super shy, and it's funny to have like an early memory where you think about your future as a very small kid. But I remember being in like elementary school and telling myself, like, if you're going to be successful in this world, like you need to learn how to come out of your shell and be yourself and like let that competitive drive shine. And so I distinctly remember having those thoughts very early in life, which now is kind of weird to think about, but definitely shaped by, the family, the competition in the house. And, I think it's interesting. You think about like why you're a competitive person. I think someone asked me in an interview once, do you love to win or hate to lose? Like, I'm sure you've been asked that question before, and I'm sure there's some psychology behind it. But when I really think about it, like deep down, I just like have this deep-seated drive not to disappoint myself. And so I am totally in the like hate to lose camp. And I think that kind of just drives a lot of what I do. I just like don't want to disappoint myself. So yeah.
I'm totally in that camp too. I hate to lose. And I think about it, I'm like, no, I love winning. But then when you have to lose and face a failure, that is like can be a hard pill to swallow for athletes for sure.
Yes, definitely.
Those are really profound thoughts for an elementary school age.
I know. I was a weird kid.
Oh, I love it. I think that's awesome. The fact that you remember that too. Were you the youngest of your sisters, or what was your dynamic with them? And kind of what did they also play softball?
Yes. So I'm actually the oldest. There's an 8-year gap between myself and the youngest, and we all played softball. So 3 of us at the University of Minnesota, and then one went to Ball State in Indiana. She was wanted to step out of the like all my sisters are doing the same thing and I'm going to do something different, but she still played softball.
That's really cool. All 3 of you went to the same university, but all 4 of you played the same sport. That's awesome that you could bond over that.
Yes.
My sister's
totally
here visiting, and she's also a volleyball player. And so we kind of had like a little bit of that like sibling, I don't want to say rivalry, but like, you look up to each other, you play the same sport, you end up kind of following each other and helping each other out in their career as well. So I love that. That's so cool.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I'm sure things got competitive in your house too. Everything we do turns into a friendly competition of some kind.
Yeah. Totally agree with that. I also have a middle brother, and it's so funny. We're still like
Okay.
this as adults. My mom sent to like our family group chat the other day a picture of like a Shoots and Ladders board game, and my brother texted the group back and was like, "That board game's going in the lake. Like he's gonna chuck it in the lake because like if you lose, you get pissed, you flip the board. Like it's very common in our household."
There have been some board flips in our house. Not saying I've been involved, but there certainly have been some board flips. So totally get that.
Not me. Couldn't be me, but it's happened.
No, not me, of course.
I love that. That's definitely a lot of similarities there between the competitive households. I love it. So you made it to the University of Minnesota. What was that transition like out of sport for you? I mean, playing at such a high level, studying at a very high
Yeah.
level too. Um, did you did you go through any sort of identity shift when you had to transition out, or what was that period like for you?
Yeah. I think I very rapidly filled it with other things. In retrospect, it was probably like a self-preservation move, but you know, I jumped into my career very, very quickly and immersed myself there. And then just on the competitive side, I filled the athletic competitive drive with other things very, very rapidly. So like earlier in my 20s, I did some marathons, I did some cycling competitively, did some triathlons, and then I got really into golf. So now I play a ton of golf and, have found other ways to kind of keep the competitive juices flowing, obviously outside of being in sales, which is probably one of the more competitive careers you can be in. But I just love to find ways to continue to challenge myself and stay active. And golf is such a great one because you can bring it into the work world as well. I actually had a customer that we played a scramble last year. And I think we got second place and they emailed me this year and they're like, we're doing it again. We're going to win. And so, it's fun to be able to kind of blend the athlete world and the sales world for sure.
Totally. I love that it's so easy to kind of slot some of those other things in to fill that competitive void, so to speak, afterwards. And I think a lot of athletes
Yeah.
I've talked to on this show, they say, I don't really play my sport anymore, but I found other ways to satisfy that urge outside of work too.
Yeah, I don't think my shoulder would let me play my sport anymore, but
Yeah, I feel
yeah.
that too. It's like the body gets a little bit stiff after a while. We'll just say that. Yeah.
Yeah.
Totally. So
Yeah.
you also filled this competitive void, I guess, with your career sales. Did you always know that you
Yeah.
wanted to be in sales, or how did that happen?
No, not at all. It's kind of one of those things that you make small shifts over time, and then you look back and you're in such a different place from where you started. And if you would have asked me when I started my career, is this the path I would have gone? I never would have seen it. But I started my career in management consulting. So after a brief stint as an actuary, which is like a whole other, a whole other potential path that I quickly realized I didn't want to do. Yeah, but I spent about 8 years in management consulting, and I honestly thought that was my kind of forever career. But what's interesting, if you know anything about consulting, is you get to the point in your consulting career where essentially it is sales, right? Like you're trying to make partner, and the way that you do that is you generate revenue, you generate business for the firm. And I got to the point where I was in my late 20s, 30, and I was trying to, get on the path toward partner. And the way that you do that is you learn how to sell. And so I made a pretty big career shift, seemingly at that time, into the tech world. And my thought process was like, okay, if I learn to hone my sales skill set, I'll have the tools that I need to be able to go back into management consulting and make partner. And I started kind of more on the technical side in sales engineering, but I very quickly fell in love with the tech world and the fast pace aspect of tech and how much things are changing. And then, you spend a couple of years doing the technical side of things, and you realize like, okay, all the money and advancement is on the sales side, and so maybe I should go do that. And so, make small changes over time that end up in a completely different spot. But really didn't think this was the direction I was going to go when I first started my career.
Yeah, that's
Yeah.
okay. That's awesome. So you realized what you were doing in management consulting is sales. So how did you transition away from that space and fully immerse yourself in sales and tech? What did that transition look like,
Yeah.
the journey?
Yeah, I was really fortunate that kind of the niche that I was in management consulting, I was doing kind of like go to market strategy consulting at the time, and uh, all of my customers at the time were asking about this idea of customer experience. It was a really big like board level hot topic, and all these technologies that helped companies support the customer experience were starting to pop up, and so I ended up going to a company called Medallia, which is in the customer experience technology
Mm.
space. And it made for an easy transition because I was kind of helping clients with making that transition from a strategy perspective and then just flipped over to the technology side of things. And so, I had met some folks working at Medallia just through clients and, made some connections and then inevitably had a leader who took a chance on me for a role that was not, the traditional background for what you would hire for like a sales engineer or solution consultant.
Right. I think that's a really incredible testament to you never know where one opportunity will lead you. Like you got into management consulting thinking that it was going to be your career. Like this was the path that you were
Mhm.
on. And you ended up making some really awesome connections that put you on this path now. Um, I guess, can you speak a little bit on that in terms of maybe, and I don't know if we call it mentorship, but I just think it's really
Yeah.
important, especially for our listeners here at Shift Group. There are oftentimes athletes and veterans who are starting their careers and they're thinking like, I have to make the right choice right now for my career. And
Yeah.
sometimes the right choice comes later. So I don't know if you have any
Yeah.
advice in that vein or thoughts on that topic.
Yeah. Yeah. You know, and you think about athletics and you're setting these goals for yourself and you're trying to think where you want to be a year, 3 years from now. And oftentimes, I think it's great to have goals for yourself from a career perspective, but just thinking about like, what's the next best move? And is the next best move going to hone a different skill set, challenge myself in a different way, put me in a position where like maybe I can make other moves as a result? And I honestly think that was a big part of it. It was, I'm going to make this move here that seems logical at this point in time, like not necessarily knowing all the ways that it can go. I never would have had on a vision board or something like that, like SVP of sales at tech company.
Yeah.
But I guess, you ask about advice. I think it's just really being thoughtful about the opportunities that present themselves. And, if you can really look yourself in the mirror and say, like, this is going to hone a different skill set, it's going to challenge me in a different way or open other doors. It very well may be the challenge you need. And you mentioned the kind of mentorship side of things. This is something that I think I've always struggled with a little bit because when I think of mentor, I think about like mentor with a capital M. Like you need to go and find your mentor and like ask someone to be your formal mentor. But when I think about folks who have like really shaped my career and my thinking, oftentimes it was, a leader who I really respected who just took time to invest in me, or, a peer individual who I could go to for advice and guidance. And so I guess the other advice I have is like, it doesn't have to be a big formal thing all the time. Just look for people who invest their time in you and you trust and believe in you. And oftentimes those individuals are giving you some of the best guidance and advice. So yeah.
Yeah, 100%. That's such a good call out. And I think about my own career too. And I used to think mentor with a capital M too. Like, I need someone to invest in me and we need to have one on ones and I need to grow and learn as much as I can. But in reality, I think about some of my mentors now and it's my peers at work and it's people that I can just go
Yeah.
to and be like, how would you handle this situation? Or what would you do here? Like those people are my mentors and they do the same with me. So it's nice to just, yeah, like feel like just an authentic work relationship where you can help each other and learn from each other.
Yeah, totally. I mean, I even think about some of the leaders who are on my team as like I would consider themselves mentors of myself and they report to me. They're people that you
Right.
can trust and have, they're always going to be honest with you. They're going to give you clear and direct feedback about yourself. And I think that's really important in leadership is that like you surround yourself with people who are not just going to like tell you how amazing you are, but people who are going to be honest and um, you know, really help guide you and help you like through blind spots. So
Yes, totally. And okay, speaking of leadership, you started to talk about this. So I want to kind of dive into your experience as SVP at Motive. So what I just want to know some of the lessons you've learned from leading high performing teams, or maybe things you've learned along the way in your career to getting to where you are now. Is there anything that stands out in particular?
Yeah, I think, one thing, and this is something that I really strive for to this day, and sometimes I struggle with, because if you think about this, if you picture like sales leader, what do you picture in your mind? You picture this like business dude. I don't know. It's kind of what I think, it's this narrative that's been shaped that's not totally fair, but it's just kind of what you think this is what it should be. But I had this leader early in my career who, I remember I was going through one of my first performance reviews in management consulting, and I knew I had been crushing it with the clients. They were loving the work. But he gave me this feedback that, like, you don't have to be this like corporate robot, and I'm sure he didn't use these words, but this is this is how I remember it in my mind. You don't have to be this corporate robot of like what you think a consultant should be. Like, people appreciate authenticity. People appreciate, you bringing your own style into whatever you do. And so, I just think I think that's so important from a leadership perspective. Like, people follow people, and people relate to people, and whether it's a customer or an employee or a peer, I think people appreciate when you kind of let your guard down and be yourself. And I like do my best to try and bring that, whether it's working with a customer or a coworker or whatever.
Is that kind of one of your keys to success then when it comes to like building relationships internally and also with prospects and clients, is like that authenticity, or are there other things that are equally as important?
Yeah, I mean, I think that's a big one. You know, people trust people who are true to themselves, I think, more than people who are trying to like act a certain way or put up a certain front. But I would say the other thing, this is totally different from the authenticity side of things, but I just think not enough people listen. And most of the time, like, people will tell you what they need. And whether they're telling you directly verbally, they tell you through body language, they tell you through action, like, people will always tell you what they need. And I think that's the case with clients. I think it's the case with, employees, people you're working with. And so I tell, people as my team, but I think taking the time to like listen, observe, and like really try and like understand what's going on in the situation, especially in the sales world, I feel like that's such an underrated skill set. We have people go through this interview process and they're doing this big presentation to show what a great presenter they are. And they're telling about all their past accomplishments. But I actually feel like listening, understanding, kind of having that EQ is one of the most important skill sets someone can have.
Yeah, I totally agree with that. I think that's so important to make people feel valued and heard for sure, and actually show them that you're listening to them. How do you
Yeah.
encourage your team outside of like, hey, be observant? Or do you think that that EQ is a skill that people kind of have or don't? Or like, how do you encourage your team to develop that skill?
Yeah. Like, I think I really believe that any skill can be learned and honed. And like, while someone has, you know, they might be better than something to start with, I honestly believe that, like, if you put enough, focus and effort, you can improve at just about anything. Um, and so some of it is just like, I think, trying to model by example. Like, if we're getting wrapped around the axle in a customer meeting and we've done 90% of the talking and haven't heard from the customer, like, taking the opportunity to say, hey, let's just take a step back for a second. Would love to get, your perspective, Mr. or Mrs. Customer. I'm also a big believer in like giving feedback immediately after and being as specific as possible. Like, and some of this probably I came from a company that was really centered, Medallia, where I was really centered around feedback. Like, it was all
Okay.
around how do you create a better customer experience by like understanding and actioning feedback. And so it was a big part of the culture there that I think has like continued, because I saw how valuable it is. But I'm just, I'm a big fan of giving that feedback like very directly and after. And obviously, there's a way to do it in like a kind, empathetic way. And I think the best way to do that is to be specific. And so there's been a number of people that I've given that feedback to over time and seen them improve on it. And I think it's made them better sellers. So anyway, like lots of different ways I think people can hone it.
100%. I think the feedback piece is so important. I think if you aren't aware of your blind spots, how are you going to improve them? And you doing it in the moment too is so huge because you can actually, it's fresh in your mind. You can reflect on what just happened and start to think about, okay, actually, yeah, maybe I could have done a little bit better here. Maybe I could have said this differently or changed this. And so you kind of get to
Yeah.
reflect in real time, which I think is definitely important because how are you supposed to improve if you don't know what you need to improve on?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
So when you're looking to bring these trusted people around you, bring them onto your team, what besides like that EQ piece, obviously that's huge, being coachable and being able to take that feedback well. What are some attributes that you look for salespeople on your team?
Yeah. Um, so I will say overall, I think I fall on the spectrum of like hire people for experience versus hire people for potential. Obviously, you have to have some level of experience to like be successful in certain roles. Like you're not gonna, hire a surgeon to do, shoulder surgery that's never done it before just because
Right.
they are really eager and high potential, right? But I do think in general, especially in a field like sales, just individuals who have the right DNA, meaning like they are intellectually curious and great, they really want to understand customers and they want to understand the craft and they have the like personal drive to succeed, even if they haven't been in like the exact same perfect experience role. Like I feel like I have a tendency to go in the direction of like the potential versus they have the perfect experience. And I think that's never, I mean, I'm thinking of 10 different people who I've worked with who it was maybe a stretch for hiring them for the role that they're in, but they're some of the highest performing people that I've worked with. And so, um, I meant like within that, I mentioned some of the things that I do think are important, right? Like, I just think that intellectual curiosity, and it comes back to the listening, right? Like, actually caring about understanding someone, understanding their business, understanding who they are really matters in the sales world. And then just, you know, coachability, I guess, is the term you could maybe use, but I think it's just attitude, right? Like, no one wants to work with the high performing asshole. Like, can I say asshole? I don't know if that's okay on the podcast. Like, no one wants to work with that person. And and you know, it's unfortunate how often those types of individuals end up sticking around for a long time, and it can really just like it can poison the culture. And so I will do everything I can to avoid that at all costs.
Yeah, attitude is so important. I kind of want to dig into to even like more specifically, if you'll let us go there, like
Yeah.
when you say you see potential in someone and you're like, maybe they don't have the perfect experience, but the potential is there. Like what key things jump out to you when you're like, oh, this person has potential? Is it how they're interviewing? Is it metrics on their resume? Or like, what does that look like?
Yeah. I think for sales specifically, there are some types of backgrounds and some types of career paths that like better suit themselves to sales, and then you're more likely to be successful making that move. But sometimes it's a little bit different. Like I mentioned the natural curiosity, and I feel like you can tell if people are asking great questions, and you can tell when someone's in an interview and it's like they have the questions written down and they ask the questions because they feel like they need to ask the questions versus like actually really trying to understand and what would this be like day to day? How would I be successful? I think another thing is like individuals who go out of their way to, uh, do their homework and due diligence prior to an interview process. So, and I think there's ways to do it. There's ways to do it in a respectful way. Like, you're not reaching out to the CEO saying, "Can I have 5 minutes of your time to prepare for this interview for a
Right.
frontline sales role?" necessarily, but like looking for connections and looking for opportunities to like prepare for an interview by understanding who might have been successful before and having a conversation with them before. I feel like that's a really good indicator um, of success. But I also feel like there's a little bit of like, you know, individuals who have that like competitive drive and that like personal, like intrinsic, like will to be successful. You can kind of see patterns throughout their life career of like they've found ways to be successful in like very different things. And I think that's a big indicator for me too. It's like maybe they've done different types of roles, but they found a way, like they find a way to be successful. And so I think that really matters.
Yeah, 100%. I think that that genuine curiosity is like such a big piece of the interview process. Like not just writing down the questions like you think you should ask. And if you genuinely are curious about those questions, like okay, that's one thing. But like you
Right.
said,
Yeah.
being able to like, oh wow, you mentioned this and like being able to actually like show an interest in how to perform
Yes.
well with the role, I think is so big. And one thing that we definitely try to hit home with our candidates here at Shift too, it's like you have to be well researched. You have to know what you're doing when you go into these interviews, and
Yes.
you have to be curious, or they will sniff that out so fast.
Yes. Yeah, totally. Yeah, and there's only so many things you can control in an interview process or in a sales like with a customer or whatever. And like your own preparation is one of the biggest ones. And so I totally agree with you.
Yeah. I want to shift gears a little bit and talk about you spoke on a panel last year at Motive's Vision 24 Summit. Correct me if I said that wrong.
Yeah.
The
Oh, you're
drive,
right. Yep.
okay,
Exactly.
perfect. The Driving Women Forward panel. So I read the article. You mentioned that you can move the needle 1% at a time. That was a quote that you said from that panel. What does that
Yes.
mean for you? Can you give us a little context around that? And why is that so important to you?
If you'd ever heard of or read the book Atomic Habits. Um I'm not a person who reads like a ton of, business self-help books. I mean, I as much as I don't want my CRO, who is like a big fan of those types of things, to see that. I feel like a lot of them kind of say a lot of the same things, and it's like, okay, we get the idea. I'd rather read like a murder mystery or something.
Oh yeah.
However, uh, I I read that book Atomic Habits, and it was like a very light bulb moment to me because I'm like, I just totally agree with the whole concept here. And basically the idea is like making small changes continuously over time will often result in like much more significant impact than trying to make a dramatic change in whatever it is that you're doing. Um and like I really try and live by that with everything. And so the 1% thing is basically like if there's one thing that you can do 1% better every single day, you do the math on it, you end up in a significantly better spot than you would have been if you wait and then try and make a drastic change. And so, I'm in sales. It's like, what's the one thing that you can do today to put like your deal in a slightly better spot? Is it having, our CEO and co-founder send an email to a key champion in a deal and let them know that he's, supportive and always open to having a conversation? Is it, get to know someone in an account that you don't know, send a couple more messages or make a couple more calls than you thought? Like doing the thing that improves 1%, I think is always going to continue to build on the results better than like trying to make a drastic change. That's basically what the idea was.
Yeah, I love that. I think it's so true. I mean, it reminds me of a quote that one of my favorites, I don't know who came up with it, but it's like, it's better to give a C effort every day than an A effort once a week. Like, and I'm not saying everyone
Totally.
will give a C effort, but I'm just saying like, if your motivation is not 100%, or if you're just like having an off day, it's better to still give than to just sit back and wait until you feel like it.
Yes. Cause yeah, you will never have full motivation every day. Like there are days when I wake up and I'm like, I can't do it today. And I do feel like as a leader, it's so important to like not let that impact how you're engaging with people and like get short with people or whatever, just because you're not feeling it. But like, what do you do to like put yourself in a 1% better spot? So
100%. Kate, and I think like as a leader, it's so important. Like when you're on a team, you work closely with people, your energy is going to impact the person next to you or that you work closely with. So I think like one thing that's just been top of mind for me lately is like leaders need to be like the thermostat, not the thermometer. Like you should be, even if you are feeling really hot that day or really cold, it's like we got to set the temperature somewhere comfortable so that we can get shit done together.
Yes. Yeah. And like, there's always, I mean, everyone has a moment where they boil over and you get frustrated and you go too far, or, you didn't have it that day. Like, I also think owning up when you have those moments can also build a lot of trust. Like, there was a situation recently where I was on we were in a deal review and like I got really, really heated, which I try not to. Like, I try and stay, um, I try and stay as calm as I can, but I got really heated and like, I had a conversation with the rep later that day and just say, hey, look, like, I don't love that I got super heated about this situation. And I hope you recognize it's because I think that you can do such great things and I believe in you. And it's 100% the truth. Like, I feel like I probably could have let it fester and like, they would just be like, oh, I didn't realize Kate was such a jerk. But knowing like if you messed up or you went too far, just like owning up to it
Yeah,
is
100%. Yeah. Did I cut out again?
you did for a second, but I think you're back now.
Okay, great. We are just battling this today with the technical difficulties. Oh my gosh. No, but I think, everyone has those moments. Like we were talking about the authenticity piece. It's always going to be there.
Yeah.
Like we're always going to have the moments where we're not going to be 100% in control, but it's like, hey, I took it maybe a step too far at that time. This is, why this happened, or this is how I was feeling, and kind of owning it. I think, again, like that just builds trust in the long run. It's like, okay, we're
Yeah.
human. We can work through it.
Yes, absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Kate, I have a couple more questions for you because I know we are running up to time and you got to get out of here and on with your day. So I just would love to ask you on a more personal note. I think as former athletes, especially, we put a lot of our identity in our sport or our competitive nature. And then a lot of us tend to put our identity in our career and what we do for a living.
Yeah.
So I just want to know, outside of your career, what fills your cup?
Yeah. There's a couple things. One, I mentioned I love to stay active outside of work. And so, I've gotten really into golf recently and I spend a lot of times, but it's also like it's allowed me to form friendships that I like, folks that I wouldn't have otherwise known or met. And I think that's really cool. So I think having those like connections with individuals that are totally unrelated to work. Like, you don't talk about work, they don't really know what you do, or if they do, they don't understand it, and being able to just like have more of a kind of normal life that you don't feel like your identity is what you do, I think is super important. I also, I think my family is really important and I love spending time with my family. And so, like my little sister lives 5 miles away from me and we spend a ton of time together. My husband and I try and spend quality time. And so, obviously I'm in like a really rigorous career and I travel a lot and it takes up a lot of time. But, I think for me, it's easy to like use the time to decompress, to just like be alone and like read a book. But I think investing in relationships for sure really fills my cup.
I love that. Yeah, got to have the love outside of the work for sure.
Super important.
Yes. Last question for you, Kate. I would just like to
Yeah.
know, in the, I guess, honor of the name of the podcast, Changing the Game, would just like to know what that means to you in your personal or professional life.
Yeah. In my professional life, I would say, and I mentioned this earlier, but it's like challenge and rethink what salesperson looks like, sounds like, feels like, and know that like there are very different type of people that can be highly, highly successful in the field, both as an individual contributor and as a leader. And I think that's important. I think it's a male dominated industry and some of our highest performing individuals are women, and so I think that's that piece. I think on the personal side it's like always challenging yourself to like change your mind and see your path as different, right? Like, what's the next best move to make? I mentioned it at the beginning, but you might think that your path, like in work or personally, is like this way, but recognizing like what's the next best move and like taking one foot at a time, to me, I just think like you can end up changing your own game in a very big way by just like making small changes. And, I think that's kind of how my career has gone. Like I said, I wouldn't have thought this is where I've would be today. It's just like small incremental changes that have gotten me to where I am. So yeah, kind of philosophical. I don't know. I think
I love
that's what
it.
I would say.
That's amazing advice. I love it. I like getting into the philosophy of it all at times. Sometimes we can go that deep. So I appreciate your time today, Kate. This was seriously so awesome. It was wonderful getting to know you and your story on the show today. Can I connect our list or can I connect? Can I encourage our listeners to connect with you on LinkedIn?
Yes, please do. Kate Woelffer, connect with me on LinkedIn. Send me a message. I would love to hear from them.
Thank you so much, Kate, for your time. And thank you for everyone listening today. We'll catch you next week with another fun episode.